Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. So for those of you listening in the podcast, welcome back to the Women's Vibrancy Code. I have a fun guest today. His name is Alex Terranova, and we've actually known each other. We've been acquaintances. Would you say it's been about 10 years, maybe, Alex?
Yeah, my guess is at least, I would say roughly 10 years.
Yeah. And he's an executive and leadership coach. And today we're talking about, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things, but what we've titled it for now, and maybe the title will change by the time it's actually live in the podcast. What we've titled it for now is how to fully embrace and express your divine masculine and feminine for ultimate performance. Let me read his bio and then we just get the show on the road. And this is going to be super organic. So Alex and I actually have no idea what we're going to talk about. And I know it's going to be divine and perfect. So Alex Terranova is an executive and leadership coach, performance and success alchemist, author, men's retreat leader, and international speaker. Alex, what's the name of your book again?
Fictional Authenticity.
Fictional Authenticity. I will be honest, I haven't read it, but I know people who have, and I've heard that it's spectacular.
So that's the best. I have not read it, but I've heard people who have. I love that.
And I've heard it's really good. So Yahoo Finance dubbed him the anti-excuses coach. He has professionally coached hundreds of successful and influential individuals and businesses to thrive financially, enjoy better relationships, and achieve more, all with less stress, drama, and difficulty. As a professional certified coach and the founder of Dream Mason Incorporated, he has combined raw, direct, and bold masculine tactics with magnetic, playful, and spiritual feminine ease. He's been featured on NBC, Fox, Yahoo Finance, The Good Men Project, Disrupt Magazine, Thrive Global, and Elephant Journal. He has worked with athletes, entertainers, executives, and leaders in MLB,
Major League Baseball, baseball players. Yeah.
I know a lot about
this sport. Is the Women's Vibrancy Code. You know, it's.
That's funny. I did date a football player for a long time and he played for the NFL. Okay. LinkedIn, Shutterfly, Godiva, Chase, $1 Million Sellers, and Coldwell Banker. So obviously he's got the credentials, my friends. He supports people in creating real results, integrity, enjoyment, and peace, so that they can be empowered and successful in what deeply matters to them and build effective teams and their legacy. Ta-da! Bio's done.
I'm trying to sit and receive all that. I have had a rough last few days. Nothing wrong, but just I think it's the come down after coming back from a week-long retreat that was phenomenal. I'm sure you've had these, right? You come back and you're just like, nothing's wrong, and I feel like I'm worthless and pointless, or you're just in the energy is different. I don't know what it is for you. I often think of it as after we hit like a peak of some kind, there is going to be a come down on the other side. We can't stay at those peaks and we can't stay at those bottoms. Right. And I'm a few days into this come down, and I gave myself a sound bath last night. Somebody's like, how'd you give yourself a sound bath? Well, I took this drum that's sitting here behind me, and on all my chakras, and just drummed it out.
Wow.
But I think the solution is actually, this should be like a wellness technique, is we should give people our list of our accomplishments and ask them to read it to us. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting here and I was like, oh, just receive this, drink this in, take this for a minute.
Yeah. Actually, I've thoughts on this. Um, when I first transitioned out of brick and mortar and into the online space, all of the who am I stories came out, like all
Mm.
of my baggage. And my coach at that point had me write down 50 reasons why. And it was so difficult for me. I had to literally name like number 1 through 50 on the page. And I was supposed to pretty much write down 50 reasons why I'm amazing, like 50 reasons why people would love to work with me, 50 reasons why I'm credentialed, I'm good at what I do, why I add value to the world. I lied to him and told him I'd done it.
Yeah.
And um I would say a good year in, he finally called me on my bluff.
Mm.
And it's fascinating. And then I've had some of the individuals that have worked with me do this, and they're often in tears.
Mm.
It's a fascinating thing to be able to really pat ourselves on the back, and then even beyond that, to receive it, to receive it externally. And I think some struggle more with saying it to ourselves,
Yeah.
and others maybe struggle more with hearing it externally.
Yeah. And like, I think learning that is so key. When I could write that list super easily and have zero confrontation,
Mm-hmm.
and all I'll see on that list is not enough.
Uh-huh.
But when you say it to me, all
Yeah.
right, if at the end of our retreats, we do this exercise where it's more complex than what I'm about to share, but where basically the men get to reflect to the other men who they are and who they've been through for them through this experience. And what I noticed is, oh my God, I can actually see myself. It takes choosing to see myself through someone else's eyes. And the magic here is choosing whose eyes you're going to see yourself through. Because
Mm-hmm.
I spent my early years of my life seeing myself through the eyes of people who looked at it from their ego, not like from their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's both ways, right? Some people can really say those things and visualize them and hold them and believe them. And when I write that list down, it's like, couldn't be more of a waste of my time. Um, just right
I
for me.
I can't wait to have conversations with you once you become a father.
Oh, I'm sure.
The first place that I went is to see me through the eyes of my children.
Mm,
They're still young.
yeah,
They still think that I'm the best mom on the planet. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's an awesome reminder on a pretty regular basis. And of course I receive it.
yeah,
It's actually, for me, I don't know about other parents out there, it's easier for me to receive it because they're so pure and so innocent. The other thing that I was thinking is you're talking about the come down after a retreat. My last 2 retreats, I made the choice, I want to say mistake, but I made the choice right afterwards. The first one, we went right into camping on the coast with 2 other families, and there was like 15 of us on a really small campsite, and it's raining and it's cold, and I was just like, hell no to all of it. And I had just spent time pouring out to 20 people
yeah.
and holding the container, and now I'm surrounded and squished, and it was horrible. And then the next retreat, like I had one day home, and then we got a puppy and flew with all 5 of us and the puppy to Arizona for a family reunion with 20 people. So I don't even, for the last
Oh,
year, I don't even know what it could be like to come home from holding that container
yeah,
and actually feel it. But I hear and I observe and I support the individuals that go to a retreat. It's like the saturation, right? And there's so much change. And then you go back to your real life, and the real life hasn't changed much. And the people that you go back to have kind of been in the same routine. And that contrast
yeah.
is jarring.
Hmm.
I'm curious if that's part of what you're experiencing.
I don't think so much for me. I come home to a very calm and peaceful house, luckily,
Mm-hmm.
to a very like stable, I want to say very stable life with a very stable and supportive partner
Mm-hmm.
who, I know when I came back, she was like wanting me to just like jump on her with joy and missing her for a week, and I was able to kind of share, hey, it's not that I didn't miss you. I did miss you. And I was just trapped in a house. When you're out, it feels like trapped for a minute, but just trapped in a house with like 11 other men for a week, and traveling 2 of those days. And that there's a part that just needs to kind of slowly integrate back in and have some space to be alone and by myself. And I'm tired. I think that was the biggest thing, is emotionally and energetically, I was like fully depleted. So I didn't have a lot to give to her.
Right.
But like I said, I have a great partner who it was totally understanding. She was like a little sad, right? Like, which is totally fair, but she also understood. The thing that I don't do well is I think I'm going to be rebound faster. So I give myself like half a day or a day off after the retreat. And then I go right back into my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize I wrote myself a note after this one, 3 days, 72 hours of no work, no, you can exercise, whatever, but no appointments, no work after a retreat ends. Because I think also I'll have that come down during those days. Whereas when I go right back into work, the come down then comes later, because I'm like delaying it because I'm not actually experiencing it. I'm busy. And then what I noticed was the weekend came. So I came back last Monday. I started back at work on Tuesday. I worked through Friday. Saturday hit, and all of a sudden I was like, why am I sad and kind of depressed and feel pointless and worthless and feel like everything I do, there's no point in anything I do. And right. And that was like Saturday and Sunday and into Monday. I was like, oh, I'm like feeling what I delayed from not letting myself feel when I came back.
And so then as an executive and leadership coach, if you were speaking to a client of yours that was saying that,
Yeah.
how would you respond?
Oh, give yourself a sound bath. Yeah, that's not what I would say. I actually did. That was an experiment because nothing I could do to get me out of it. And I believe, I have this dual thing, which you read, the masculine and feminine. The masculine needs to take action and do something about the situation that they're in. And the feminine can feel and be with what the experience that they're in. And I think that there's a both and, where we don't want to do our way out of every feeling and we don't want to feel our way stuck into every space. Right. And I think that is a really gentle, fine line to navigate and figure out. So some things I try to do is, first, I give myself permission to just feel the way I'm feeling. So I had a client recently who was just like, I'm just not motivated. And we'd done all these things to get them motivated and inspired. And I said, you know what? Why don't you just hang out in the lazy river? How long you want to be in the lazy river for? And they were like, a week. I was like, great. Can you put a timer on your phone? Like set something that's like, hey, I got to get out of the lazy river on this day. But until the lazy river time is up, I'm going to just Netflix. I'm not going to work, right? They own their own business. And they said when they surrendered to that, it was like less than 72 hours before they were like, I need to do something. Like, it flipped on them, right? The fighting, the tug of war with it, had them not be able to be in either one. When they gave themselves permission to just surrender to doing nothing, then they didn't actually want to do nothing for that long. Right. So that's one thing, is sometimes just surrender or give myself permission to feel basically like a piece of crap, like it's okay.
I want to give you a hug.
And then I try to do things that shift energy. So I'll exercise. I love going outside and finding grass and just lying down in grass on the ground and grounding. I don't know if you're familiar with like hape. Hape is a plant medicine. It's like tobacco and other plants. It doesn't get you high. It's not a drug. It's totally legal. It's almost like a meditation cleansing tool, but you snort it, and it like hits you and drops you right into your body. The way what I feel like it does is, instead of meditating for 10 or 15 minutes to get there, it has you get there like that. And then I meditate. And that's like a practice that I have that I worked with a shaman on. So I'll do that because that will shift the energy. I'm not joking about the drum. I was like, you know what, I'll try anything. And I held the drum in front of each chakra and just like banged on it creating the vibration and just feeling it all the way up. And at the time I was done, I was like, well, I feel a little better. Like I felt different. Take walks. Sometimes to go into a masculine place is like, is there something I can work on? Is there something I can chew on that will then give me like a feeling of some purpose or some direction?
Right.
I wasn't in a place where that was going to happen.
Right.
Sometimes I am, but in the last few days it wasn't. But what I noticed was like all those things together plus a little time. And today I was a different guy, you know, like this, it will just like the excitement passes of the big win, the kind of low point passes also.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm hearing is when we find ourselves in a rut, feeling disempowered, uninspired, sad, there's a veil between really feeling joy, whatever it may be, to take an account of, am I spending more time in my masculine doing, pushing, going, or am I spending more time in my feminine, just flowing and taking time off and laying in the grass? Both have roles, but sometimes if we've gone too far to an extreme, we need to go play in the other realm for a little bit.
Yeah. Or we're playing tug of war between them, right? We're not letting either one actually have its moment.
Yeah.
We kind of yank it back and forth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We were camping. Has nothing to do with our interview, but we were camping a couple weekends ago. My fifth grader, it was his class, the whole class. And we were there, all of us at this campsite. And one of the other grade schools from town, the fifth graders, all came running over at once with this big tug of war rope and challenged my kids' class to tug of war game with no warning. It was like half of the fourth grade class against their entire fifth grade class. They got demolished. I was so competitive. I was like, that is not fair. But I feel like in this tug of war example you give, it was that. Like I felt like I wanted to get all the kids together and go romp over to their campsite and challenge them, but with us prepared and together as a cohesive unit.
Oh, I think it's such a beautiful life lesson. Is rarely when life shows up to play tug of war with you, are you prepared?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's something beautiful in there about when life shows up to play tug of war, you better just give it your best shot and like know that you gave it your best shot, or just surrender to it.
Yeah.
But it's not fair.
Totally.
It's such a funny thing, right? Because it's like, when has life been fair to any of us, right? So sometimes life is really generous and gracious and kind, but I don't know that life is ever fair, right? It never feels like it's like, I'm going to equally take care of all parts involved.
Yes, totally. Do you know Susan Weed at all as a herbalist?
I don't think so.
It does a lot of women's stuff, but I was listening. I had interviewed her years ago and I was listening to that. And she says, there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah, I agree.
She says, take a deep breath in.
Yeah.
Okay, now breathe out. Where's the balance?
Yeah.
No, it's like there's this constant ebb and flow, swinging from one direction to the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it, I use ebb and flow. And the example is breathe. When you look at the ocean, it doesn't perfectly come in and go out to the exact same spots, equidistant, like every time. Right. Nothing in nature, you look at a lawn grass, like a lawn of grass, or however you say that. And if all of it gets the same amount of sunlight and it all gets the same amount of water, the blades of grass don't grow at the same rate.
Yeah.
And we have this weird obsession with things needing. I also think of it like this, like a scale, right? Like as one, or a teeter totter. But yeah, we have this weird obsession. I think it's a Western thing, but I don't know, with balance and fairness. There's something right around like the way the myth that like we are in Western Judeo-Christian religions and in Westernized culture, that we're like all equal, or that we're all, we all deserve equal opportunities. And I'm not saying I want everyone to have all of equal opportunities and all possibilities. And we're not all equal. Like
Yep.
just simply like I'm taller than you, you're shorter, right? I'm bigger, I'm stronger. You may
Your
be,
eyebrows are thicker.
you're smart, right? And you're smarter, right? Whatever it is,
Oh,
but, and it doesn't make, I think the difference is it doesn't make us better or worse than each
right.
other, but nothing is
Right.
equal.
And it seems from my perspective, it might be part of the what I think of like an overprescription epidemic, where you look around and there's like antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds in the water because
Mhm.
we have this expectation
Yeah.
that we should be able to equally be successful and equally
Mhm.
be as beautiful and equally be as smart and equally as whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so now we're stuck in all this comparisonitis and the drive, 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 go, go, go. And then you add social media where people are only putting their best face forward. And now it sure creates a cycle. So when you think about what you're doing now, you've written the book, you've hosted a podcast, you've done executive coaching with some really big names, you're now hosting men's retreats. What is it that you love to do?
I like create. I love creating, and it doesn't matter what it is. If you said to me, now I don't, right? I couldn't necessarily write or create a course for women's health, right? I don't know
Yeah.
enough. But if you gave me a crash course and then you said, create me a course or create me a speech, like I would be like, let's go, let's do this. Like that, like lights me. The idea of creating something out of nothing
Mm-hmm.
really gets me excited. So it's like ideas, possibilities. Um, I love thinking of new exercises to do with people, new ways to take people through some sort of transformation or some growth oriented exercise, and making things up, right? All the things everyone's done is made up. It's not special. Like, um, I, uh, I write almost every day, and the idea of like, what am I going to write today? Right, creating another, like, an idea perspective out of nothing. I've written movie scripts, I've written TV scripts, I've outlines for other books. Yeah, it's,
Mm-hmm.
if I could just create all day, which I do in to a degree, but if it was just like, hey, just show up and create, and there'll just be money in your bank account,
Yeah.
to take, I would that's
Yeah.
yeah, I would just show up and want to make things.
And interestingly enough, when I think about someone who's an executive coach, my assumption is that in that space, you're not necessarily creating, you're helping someone else create.
Yeah, I think my job, whether it be executive coaching, leadership coaching, working with a small business or working with teams, is to create space.
Hmm.
I often think of myself as I'm a warrior fighting for space. And the
Hmm.
space is for the executive, the leader, the president, the CEO, whatever it is, to be able to um, get outside of whatever they're in. So here's a way to think about it: is most people have their business or their situation, and it's like, imagine like it's the room that you're in or I'm in. And what most people are doing is they're just like moving the furniture around the room, trying to like have it fit different or better. And I see my role is to actually create a space outside of the room that they get to step into and create something fully new. Sometimes that's done through different perspectives. Sometimes it's done through like challenging beliefs. Sometimes it's done through like inquiry, but question asking and whatnot. Yeah, that to me is the fun, is like, how do I get to create the space for them or hold the
Yeah.
space?
I that resonates with me so much from what I know about you, and I can definitely see that and the need for it. I mean, I'm even thinking with one of my VIP clients this week and the conversation that I was having with him, and he's built, multiple 7, 8 figure businesses, but it's really that what you just said is actually what he was asking for.
Space. We have this. That's funny that this is coming up. I was talking to somebody today about this idea that we're afraid to take up space. I know this is like
Mhm.
very common for women, right? Like be small, don't take up space, right? We call women all sorts of words when they're too loud or too big. Um, and the misconception that I think people have is space is infinite. There's no scarcity of space. Now, if you take up space from your heart, from your essence, from your purpose, from your passion, what you actually do is create more space for others. You don't only give other people permission to do it themselves, but in whatever you're creating opportunities for other people to step in and take up space. Now, when you were doing it from ego or fear, what I think we're actually doing is then it's not that we can take up space that people can't have, but we're like crowding the space. We're like messing with other people's space. So it still exists, it's still there, but we're kind of like shadowing it, getting in the way of it. And I think, I think just through history and time, because of a, obsession with money and obsession with materialism and things, we've learned to take up space from the shadow side and not as much from the light side.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking is, for those of us that are intuitive and in touch, when you're attempting to share space with someone, it feels totally different. Like when I'm sharing space, so to speak, with someone who's coming from the ego or the shadow place, it feels like it's intruding. It feels like it's taking. It feels like there might not be space for me. Whereas when I'm in what Gary deems authentic power or spiritual partnership, and I'm around someone who's taking up space from a really authentic, loving intention, not from ego, then it literally expands the space in the room, and it inspires me and gives me permission to go do my own version of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for leaders and executives, this is where I see a big gap, because there's a lot of people calling themselves coaches or consultants that work with leaders, and all they're doing is giving a 10-step plan, or here's my formula for success, which may work. Sometimes those things are really great. There's really great people that can do that. But what it's also doing is it's getting it all over you, right? It's like my way works, right? That's an ego. So even if it has worked, it actually dims the light of the other person. It dims the possibility, because it's like, imagine if whoever the first successful person in business was, right? Like the Henry Fords kind of the world. If we all just copied that, we'd all be driving the exact same car that looked exactly right. Everything would just be copy and pasted. We'd live in the most boring world ever. And so I think there's people like that because it feels like a shortcut. Oh, you're going to like tell me how to get the thing I want really fast. And I don't think that's what people actually want. I think what they're really hungry for is that like personal actual expression, that personal creation, that figuring out their own voice or their own spirit expressed in the world.
And I think a lot of people are afraid of their own power. And so when we take that easy, okay, you're just going to tell me my solutions, give me those 10 steps. It's an easy way to relinquish my power, give it to someone else, but kind of like with the masses, this is what everybody else is doing, without actually having to look myself in the mirror and say, I'm actually freaking afraid of my own power. What's the Marianne Williamson quote around, what people fear the most is their own power.
Yeah, they're like, it's the actually succeeding or actually seeing how great they are, not actually failing.
Yeah. Versus, I think of it through the lens of as a midwife. If I'm attending a birth and I'm projecting my own idea of how the birth is supposed to go and when the baby's going to be born and what position she's in and what sound she makes, that's a super disempowering space. And I think a lot of obstetric care is trying to put birth into that box. You have to dilate this fast in this much time, or we're going to pump you with Pitocin, versus allowing the power of the woman, the power of the unborn baby, the power of universe, whatever, God, whatever you want to call it, to really be expressed. So it sounds like in the work that you're doing, both in your executive leadership coaching as well as facilitating retreats, here's once again this teeter-totter, this ebb and flow of you holding the container, but really it's about allowing, you're going to create the space, kind of new space, for someone to fully step into their own power and their own leadership, not from an ego place. And when that happens, more space is created for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was listening to you just talk about the pregnancy, and I was like, oh, pregnancy and business are exactly the same. They're both birthing ideas. You both need support.
Yep.
You need some bumpers. You're there to make sure it
Yep.
doesn't get too out of control, because if it does, then there's some really dangerous risks.
Totally.
And if it's too controlled, there's also some horrible things that can happen. And there's that place in the middle, right? That person who comes in and is like, these are the 5 steps to be successful. This is your new product, or this is what we know everyone wants. And it's just the same thing again. You can do that, but you're missing out on kind of the gold that's available if all you do is create the bumpers and just like, hey, my job's just here to make sure that you stay right inside of this. And in business, I would say, while in pregnancy, it's safety, it's health of the mother and the baby. In business, I think it's your commitments and your values. So I'm here to, or even in the men's work, hey, what are you committed to? What are your values? Who's the man you want to be in the world? And then we're navigating your business, your money, your finances, your teams inside of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going, hey, you're actually outside of that thing, which has you be out of integrity, which now we're in a place of the ship can sink. I'm mixing metaphors here, but now the ship can sink if the ship's doesn't have integrity.
Yeah. And so you're holding space for a bunch of executive leadership men to be at this retreat. And do you think most of them are way far over in hyper masculine? They're wanting to get in touch with their feminine. Like what's happening in that space with a bunch of men that like fart and chew on tobacco and spit in hands and stuff?
So none of that. Okay, so this is the thing that blew me away the most. So I'm going to say all this with this. These are just facts, no judgment.
Yeah.
We had 12 men. We had a couple of Christians. We had a couple of Jews. We had one Buddhist. We had a couple of people who were born something but don't identify with religion or spirituality much at all. And we had a couple of people who are very connected to like indigenous spirituality traditions. We had roughly, I think 9 of the 12 men were white. 3 were men of color. One of the men of color was also gay. We had one man show up in a Make America Great hat again and a I'm non-binary t-shirt. And we had men that had blue collar jobs, white collar jobs, entrepreneurs, fathers of daughters and sons. We had, I said we had the man, a gay man of color. We also had men who shared that they have experienced like they've been bisexual at times in their life and liked it and hadn't ventured back to it because of the shame and whatnot. I say all that to simply say, like, we had this spectrum.
Yeah.
There's some things left out, right? There's some people like not in there. And I think it's tough to have everyone in everything, but we had a pretty good spectrum of what it means to be a man. And the thing I'm the most proud of about this retreat is at the end of the retreat, the men were saying, I love you to each other and able to say, hey, when you got here, that thing you were doing or who you were scared me or triggered me because this is my experience with people like that. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is I'm so wrong about people like that you're just another human with a heart and with goals and dreams and children you care about. And that went both ways, right? From any of those types of people that I mentioned, it was just firing across all bounds. And even for me, I noticed at one point during the retreat, I was speaking to the group about fear. I was speaking about fear, and I made a comment like, you all know what it's like to walk across a bar to hit on a woman and like how that could feel scary. And as I was saying it, there was a voice in the back of my head going, you're saying that normal relationships for men are men-woman. Mm-hmm. And after that, I had this thought and I went, man, I think I've done that a few times and I'm so not committed to that. I just believe like, who am I to decide what normal is? Mm-hmm. And who am I to say what people should do or don't do? As long as you're not hurting anyone else, like, and you're living your truth, please. And I had to go and have a really cool conversation with one of the men who I felt like that would be triggering for, right? Like that's not his reality. And in crossing over that bridge and apologizing and cleaning that up, not only did me and that man become much closer in the experience, but I think he then like opened up more with all of them men, which then had all of the men open up like to another layer.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like chills thinking about it because, you know, I don't know that those men might go back to their lives, but I think that they'll look at people differently with less judgment, with less assumption about what they think they know about people like that.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's really rewarding for you. Like the purpose of the men's retreat has lots of layers,
Yeah.
but that's a big part of it. And right before that, you were talking about commitment and values.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like it's commitment and values to ourselves as individuals, as well as the acknowledgement of the role that we're playing in a group dynamic and in a
Yeah.
community and in a society and in humankind.
Yeah. The way that we talk about it, or that I talk about it with what I think we were really doing on this retreat is leadership. You can call it a men's retreat, a masculine retreat, whatever. It's
Mhm.
really leadership because it's who are you as a leader in your life, in your own life? Who are you as a leader in your relationship? Who are you as a leader in your business? Who are you as a leader around your finances? Who are you as a leader around your spirituality? That it's actually up to you to be a leader in all these areas of your life. And the way you do leadership is you can see it in all the different areas. And most people just like don't know how to do leadership because nobody ever showed them or taught them. And we have these prescribed ways of doing leadership. This is the right way to be a leader. This is how a leader should look. No, it's not. There's so
Mhm.
many ways to be a leader. And even in that, the thing that I feel like I'm really committed to is the looking at you into the future, like closing your eyes and being like, who is the Maraya? Who is the Alex in 10 years from now? Who's that woman? Who's the person that I want to die as? And how do I want people to talk about me? And what's the ripples I want to have? And the way that we pose this to the men is most of us live our lives and then we deal with the consequences of the things we do. And we often view consequences as bad. They're not, right? If I invent something really great and I make a lot of money, the money's a consequence of this great thing I invented. But what if we flipped it? What if we chose the consequences and the consequences informed our actions?
Yeah.
And then you're taking responsibility for the ripple. I'm looking at the picture behind you, which in a way feels like a ripple.
Mhm.
And to me, like right, that's living like a full powered life.
And one of the ways that I feel like I say a similar thing is to make the decisions today in the embodiment of the woman that I intend to become, the
Mm-hmm.
the life that I intend to create, the impact I intend to have. If I can see that and envision it
Yeah.
and embody myself already there and act today
Yeah.
as though it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's and the people that I listen to in the law of attraction and manifestation, I feel like I'm hearing kind of the same thing from all of them. We have the esteemed privilege of making a choice today to act as though it's done in
Well,
that future
how would
vision.
you also become it if you didn't, right? Like
Right.
if you and I sit around and eat pizza and chips all day and watch Netflix all day long, we could sit around and think about us as being healthy, fit people.
Mm-hmm.
Although we could also, right, but the actions we're taking are likely going to lead us to have a lot of health problems and challenges.
Right. Right.
It's funny how it's like they work at the same time. We're manifesting the future reality based on our behavior today, and our behavior today is also being called forth by the future reality that we want to manifest, right? And we have to do both, that dance together.
Yeah. And if you were to spend a whole weekend vegging on Netflix, what would you choose?
You know, here, this is pretty crazy. So prior to doing ayahuasca, I
Yeah.
would have probably chosen like horror, like something scary,
Oh, wow.
and I can't now.
Mhm.
It like when I watch something that's just like kind of a straight horror, something shifted in my experiences that
Yeah.
it changed. My whole nervous system can't deal with. I'm not actually scared, but I have a full nervous system like disgust response at the energy almost of it.
Yep.
even action movies. I used to like love a good action movie that I could kind of zone out to because it's kind of predictable. The onslaught of shooting and death and violence, I have also a reaction now where I'm like, it like doesn't feel good to watch humans die.
Yeah.
Um, so now it's changed. I just had to say that because I never would have thought that's what it would have been. I really like things that kind of make you think, things that pose like alternate realities. I mean, I love documentaries, and I something that if it doesn't make me think, I'm going to be on my phone looking up other things.
Yeah.
I have my attention span is like not very big, large. And so if something's really got to hook me, or I'm like looking for something to hook me. So I'll be when I grab my phone, if I'm watching a show and I grab my phone, I'm like researching something. I'm like looking for something that like feels like I can chew on or satiates me.
Yeah. Um, and to your point around kind of a historic numbness to death and horror, it's surprising to me. Um, in society today, what people allow their conscious and unconscious nervous systems to be exposed to.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just kind of blown away. Even just having the news playing in the background, or the
Mm-hmm.
things that people will watch and not think anything of. I mean, I feel it so jarring to my nervous system because I protect what comes in, and I
Yeah.
know that anything that I allow into my eyes, my mouth, or my heart is impacting every cell in my body, past, present, and future. And so I feel grateful that the shift happened within you. And I don't know, sometimes I wish that we could just shake people out in the world and go, what are you doing? Why does this not impact someone? Why do they not feel?
Yeah. It's easier to a degree. It's easier not to, right? It's harder to, it's harder to feel. I mean, imagine if we could walk around and touch hot things and they didn't burn us,
Yeah.
right? Or we could get poked by things and they didn't impact our skin. We would just be like wrecking balls, right? We wouldn't have any. It's easier. It was way easier to be able to like put on a horror movie and zone out, or put on an action movie and check out. It was way easier to. I say I'm a recovering asshole at times because of the way my life used to be and who I used to be. But to some degree, for a long time, it was actually easier to have no empathy and not feel and not care about other people and just be self-centered and egotistical
Mm,
until it wasn't anymore. And
yeah.
then and so there's a part of me that's like, hey, we are having the experience that we are meant to have. I'm not going to call it perfect or any, I don't, it is what it is. But I think, I got to have the experience I had, and that's like part of my journey. And, the person who is numbing themselves out on horror movies, sports, and porn, like there's some journey for them. I don't know what it is. I can't imagine. I often think like, there's a soul in there that chose that ride. I can't know why it chose that ride.
And do you think there's very many of those individuals that you end up coaching or working with?
This is wild. So I'll just use the retreat as another example of this. First night of the retreat, um, one of the men goes, hey, because we say like no drugs, no alcohol, no porn when you're at the retreat. And one of the men says, what about cigarettes? And I said, what do you say? And he was like, well, you said no, and I was like, well, I'm asking, like, we have some plant medicine here. We don't consider it a drug, right? We relate to it as a medicine. What do you say about cigarettes? We also had mapacho with us, which is organic, indigenous, like tobacco. It has no chemicals in it. You use it in ritual. So it's like, who am I to say you can't, right? It's like, hey, choose. And the guy was like, I'm going to do the whole week with no cigarettes. And then another guy raises his hand and goes, he was like very skeptical. He's like, I think I'll give up my vape for the week. And then another guy goes, I don't do social media. I'm not big on like watching porn, but I'm obsessed with the news and the stock ticker. He goes, I'm going to not do that for the week that we're here. And it was like dominoes. Guys just kept raising like what, and then a couple of guys said, I have an issue with porn. I'm going to not watch porn while I'm here. And then everybody chose an accountability buddy that didn't have the same thing to just check on them and see. And we were like, listen, if you're having an issue with any of these, if you need your cigarettes, you need your vape, you need your porn, whatever, our only ask is that you come to the group and share with us before you break like your fast.
What if it's at 1:00 in the morning?
Well, since most people were sharing beds, not beds, rooms. Nobody was sharing a bed. We're sharing rooms. Those things might have been found out. But I mean, there was some trust, right? Like we trusted, and it was pretty cool to see. I think people want to, and I want to be really clear. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of those things. There's nothing wrong with a cigarette. Now, there might be something wrong with smoking a cigarette all day long, every day. There's nothing wrong with porn. Couples can use porn powerfully to create intimacy. There are people making porn who powerfully chose it as a way to express themselves. And yes, there's porn that's really not okay, and people who haven't consented, and there's people that are using it like a drug and it's addictive. All of these things have a spectrum. And again, all we did was create the space for people to choose something different, to have a new experience, to see how it's impacting their life. Could they be present with us for like the week? And what I shared with them at the end was our last fire circle the last night, and it went till like 1 a.m., which was not our plan. It was like a 7 a.m. day to a 1 a.m. day. And at the end of the fire circle, I thanked all the men, and I reflected to them the feminine in your life, whether it be your feminine or the woman or the children, whatever it is craving the attention that you brought to yourself and this community this week. The feminine wants to be seen, heard, and understood. And the masculine, this is hilarious, just wants to be done. The masculine just wants to be done with all of his projects or the projects. It might be a feminine masculine, a woman's masculine. And that the masculine's constantly trying to be done. And so I can't have a hard time just giving the feminine its attention for just the sake of giving it its attention. And I think a lot of that stuff, I didn't know that we were doing that intentionally, but that was one of the rewards is, man, look at the attention you all men brought to this, like one thing for this week. You could do that to your partners or your children or whatever matters to you.
So the feminine wants the attention and the masculine wants it to be done.
Well, the feminine wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah.
Which I believe is attention to a degree, right? It's not like ego attention.
Yeah.
And the masculine is like what the guys we just want to be done with. Like, can we just finish the list? Can we be done with work? And there's some weird.
Yeah.
Right.
So then when you came home to your wife, from this retreat, how do you feel like she received you? And do you think her feminine was really longing to feel seen, heard, and understood?
Yeah.
And how did that interplay take place after this men's retreat? And then you're coming down, reintegrating back into a home environment, back into Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles?
San Diego.
San Diego, and the daily grind, and the traffic's still the same. The people are still the same. If she didn't go on a retreat, her days and weeks were pretty consistent.
She wanted to be seen, heard, and felt. And like, she wanted my attention. And I wanted to be done, right? I wanted to do nothing for a moment in time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we navigate in relationships. That's the game we're playing, is that we're hitting a ball back and forth like ping pong. And sometimes someone hits it back really hard and we have to receive that. And sometimes somebody doesn't even hit it and just lets it go by them. And we have to be wait, why didn't you hit the ball back? I think that whatever is happening is a reflection of us. Right? Her hyper wanting to be seen, heard, and have attention put on her was a mirror for my wanting to check out and not like be seen or felt at all.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, right, it's the thing that that kind of pokes at us. She brings that and it pokes at me. And it's like, who are you going to be? Are you going to complain about this? Are you going to whine about this? Are you going to go put something on the TV that she doesn't like so she goes away? We did an exercise where we asked the men to, how do you create barriers in your life? How do you create them with your employees? How do you create them with your customers? How do you create them with your partners, your kids? And one of the things I noticed is I'll put something on the TV that she doesn't like, and then I get to be like left alone. But I actually don't want to be alone. I think I actually want her to be with me, but it's like my shadow side. It's like a
Mhm.
sneaky shadow thing. Uh,
Fascinating. And I imagine when you're gone, she's now going more into the masculine, the going, the doing, the picking up the pieces that you would naturally do in running the household and getting shit done. And then here is the masculine coming back and she's like, "Okay, I want to be seen, heard, and
yeah.
understood." And that interplay, it's something I think about often. I think about the last time my husband went on a men's retreat and I was here solo with the kids and the home. And when he came back, I just wanted a break.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even in the space to hear his amazing stories and all the because
Mm,
it just was like words. He had emotion associated with it.
yeah.
And I wasn't in the space to be able to receive it. And so then I think about this often as I'm hosting women's retreats and couples retreats. Oh my goodness, not yet, but soon. Um, to be able to create a net that is there to help the integration so that it's not so jarring
Yeah.
to leave this amazing, profound experience. And you go back, even if you go back to someone who's fully present and ready to receive you, the words that you try to relay about the experience, there are no words that can really relay the experience that you shared with those men
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's emotional and it's cellular and it's spiritual and words don't really, it's like you can't take a picture of it.
And you, it's a really good point, right? Like, how do you go back home? And this could be from anything. How do you go back home from a wedding, a honeymoon, a childbirth, like any big major life-changing
Yeah.
emotional event? How do you reintegrate? How do you go home? Um, I think about some of the men were clear that when they went home, their partners had been holding down, we don't have any kids, right? So my but some of the men do, and one of their things was, when you go home, send your partner away and take those kids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to say that, like, hey, we know you're going to be tired, we know, whatever, but they've also been holding down this thing for you so you could go have this experience. Like, go take care of them, let them take care of themselves. um and I think that there's a little bit of a difference, just because we don't have that, right? We don't have there's some pets. But yeah, and I think it's an area to improve too. I just wrote myself a note that was like, oh, on the next retreat, we need better reintegration tools, um, that are not like what we say to do, but to have each man create his own integration plan,
Yes.
which to me is really like, that sums up all like the work I do in general. It's like, oh wait, we need an integration plan, but it's not for me to give you your integration plan. It's for me to tell you about integration. And then it's like, what is your life going to need? And how can we co-create this together?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. I think about it often. I go to masterminds, I go to trips, or even someone who simply goes away to work for the day and then comes home.
Could be, yeah. Yeah.
This ebb and flow, the inhale, the exhale, where is the pause to integrate back into this new space?
Mm,
And particularly after big, profound retreats, I feel like it's important to create integration into what the integration looks like back home and back into work and back into the home geography, but also for the retreat participants to potentially have another Zoom meeting or some plan to touch base. And what was integration like for you and how was the implementation of that integration plan what did it feel like to implement it? And was it bumpy? Was it smooth? What would you have done differently? And to hold that space for one another. I'm thinking around the story of how you and your wife met.
Sure. It's
If
boring.
you
It's terrible. Nobody wants to hear this.
tell the story briefly.
Okay. Briefly, I'll do the quick version. It's like 2-ish years ago, I think, roughly. Um, I I'd been engaged, I'd been in serious relationships, I'd been a bachelor many a times throughout those things. Um, for a long time being single and dating was a lot of fun. And there was a moment in time in my mid to late 30s where all of a sudden it wasn't fun anymore. I noticed I wanted to be done. I wanted to be done with dating. What it used going on dates, which used to be a lot of people hate dating. I always loved it. And I was miserable going on dates. And I went, wow, that's like a big shift. What there's something there. And one of the things I noticed in being surrounded by, people like you that will reflect things to me, that will tell me the truth, and coaches and friends, was I started to realize that my biggest problem in dating was me, that I keep picking the same types of women over and over and over again. Now, nothing wrong with these types of women, just not right for me, just not good matches for me, right? It's just not a good, it's just a challenging merger.
You're like perpetually upper limiting yourself.
Yeah. Or trauma bonding, or, right, like choosing from ego, or choosing from vanity, or choosing from, oh, this is fun and hot and passionate, but full of like drama,
Yeah.
all sorts of things like that. And I realized, I went, oh my God, I just keep creating this pattern. So I said to my cousin, who Brittany, we were in Santa Barbara at a bar, and we'd had a few drinks. I said, you should just pick who I date, which she was like, absolutely, I love this game. And in 24 hours, that kind of joke became a thing with a couple other friends of ours. And these are people I like, these are not like my college buddies who would just like send me on dates to get a good laugh. These are people that really care about me, that know me, that want the highest and best for me. And I had, because of COVID and whatnot, I had 2 tickets to go to Tulum for a really good friend's wedding that had been postponed and whatnot. And so the plan was we would create a bachelor style contest, and women could apply to go on a 2-week, all expenses paid trip with me to Tulum. The kicker was that my 5 friends, 3 women and 2 men, would choose the winning woman, not me. So they would interview the women. They would have there was an application. The women could talk to them about me. If they went past a certain round, the women could choose their friends to interview me. And then at certain points, we were like DMing and chatting and whatnot. Evan, my wife, applied to this contest because she was like, this sounds like an adventure. This sounds like fun. I'm committed to adventure and fun and dating. And that was my whole thing, was like, let's surrender to adventure and fun. And that's what really spoke to her about the landing page. This whole thing that had gone viral. There were many women that applied, and Evan applied and won the contest. And we went to Tulum together for 2 weeks. We fell in love. She moved in with me about 5 months after that. And then about a year-ish later, we got married.
Didn't you get married in Tulum too?
And we got married in Tulum, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a fun story. And so the reason I asked that is then, is there any chance of you and Evan doing some type of work together in spirit of adventure and fun? And is there any conversation there?
We actually did. So we ran 2 programs so when we did this thing, it was called Your Love Adventure, it was my Tulum dating experiment adventure. And then we created a program, which we ran twice, called Your Love Adventure, which had people, essentially, we helped them create. One round of it was people created their own contest, just like I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the other round of it, we had people kind of, the old books that were like Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yeah.
we gamified their dating life. So we create challenges for them and like obstacles and things they had to go do out in their dating life. They were great. It was really fun. One of the things, there are two things. One is I don't personally want to spend my days coaching relationships.
Yeah.
I like relationships as a piece of a larger puzzle, but talking about love all day long is like not that fun for me. It's right. So I love when an executive or someone who is has a business and some things that they're up to wants to talk about their marriage and stuff. I love supporting people with that. But strictly let's talking about love and dating, that's just not what I want to be coaching people around.
But also, as you spoke about it, it felt fun and light and a little bit superficial and playful.
Yeah.
And from what I know about you, like you want depth, you want to drop in quick, and there's a disconnect there.
Yeah, we tried to, I think we did try to create all those things for these people, but also I think another piece is Evan and I don't know if we worked that well in business together. I am let's have an idea, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And let's not even plan too much because it might not even work out. So let's just see how it goes.
Totally. Yes.
And Evan is we need to have the whole thing outlined. We need to have a timeline. We need to have all the and she's so good at it, right? Like she's incredible. And I think we did a pretty good job of navigating that together. We weren't even married and we were like doing this program together and leading something. I think we did a great job. And I also think we both were like, I like the way I work. She likes the way she works. And it was a lot. It didn't feel great to either one of us. It didn't feel great to me that she was taking on so much responsibility. But to me, it was like, but that's not how I work. So if she wants to do it. And it didn't feel great to her that she was taking on all this responsibility. So I think we collectively kind of put it down. And I shared, to me, it was like, this is more her model. She's more in the love business. She does self-worth coaching and dating coaching for women. And so to me, it was like, why don't you take this thing and make it yours? And I can support it if it's need, but it doesn't feel like mine. It felt like mine for the experience, but not mine for the work.
Yeah. I was kind of giggling inside listening to the realization around the relationship dynamic. My husband and I have been together for, I think, almost 17 years. This next month will be 17 years. And we just had a therapy session in the last few weeks where it was like, how did I not see this? He loves to plan and organize and compartmentalize. And for me, it literally stresses me out to the max. I feel like I'm in a cage and the walls are caving in. And I'm like, I realized in our first few months we were dating, he said, hey, there's this like play showing at the theater or something. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. He says, okay, I'm going to go buy tickets for Thursday night. I'm like, no, what if Thursday afternoon I change my mind and there's something else I want to do? Like, let's just buy tickets when we get there, So it's that.
Yeah.
And we've made it work, but I think there's definitely this realization around, wow, okay, how do we maybe not work together, but navigate a household together and navigate parenting together and where the towels go in the drawers and how the laundry's folded and all of those pieces where I'm like, I don't know, we'll just figure it out. Let's go play. And it's probably some of that masculine and feminine dance too.
Well, and there's the places where we feel things are important and where we don't, right? This is funny, but this is like a very coupley thing. I think I know the best way to load the dishwasher. Right. Or there's other random things around the house and she doesn't care. Right. And I'm like, how can you not care? We're going to have to run it. And it's not that I actually care about the dishwasher. Right. I don't want to do dishes often. So I want to like fill it up as much as possible and then run it once and do that as few times. And she's kind of like more just like throws them. So I'm looking at it like Tetris and she's looking at it just like putting the dishes in the dishwasher. We recently went through a couples retreat together where they were like, identify the things that really, there's a lot of things around the house that don't matter to either one of you.
Yeah.
But there are some things that really matter and teach the other person they had their own language for this, but it was in a simple hand. It was like, teach the other person the things that matter to you the way that you like them to be. And
Yeah.
so it was like, instead of just complaining about it, show them, be like, hey, this is really, can you do it this way? It's not the right way. It's just the way I like to do it, and they get to do the same thing for you, but you're not doing it in a reprimandy,
Totally.
kind of
But
like,
to help the other person understand the significance of it. For my husband, it's the toilet paper rolls. Not to, if the toilet paper is on the last couple squares,
yeah,
if it's not replaced,
yeah,
for him, he feels disrespected and like
yeah,
his values aren't being honored.
yeah,
And for me, it's wasting water. He does the dishes and just lets the water run. And I would rather fill the sink. But the point is to have the conversation around what significance and what value do I place on it and why is it important to me?
yeah.
Not just can you do this thing, but to dig in and get clarity on the story. Fun. Okay, so the two of you aren't going to work together. What about the next book? What's the next book going to be?
Oh my God. I think the next book, I'm like pretty sure, is going to be called The Limitless Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 7 secrets to being an infinitely better leader, outselling everyone and leaving a lasting legacy. And to me, this is a book about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is that um, the leadership that we need in the future is about possibilities, which is to me limitless. It's like that endless space. And we need mavericks. We need people that are willing to break the rules and do things differently than they've ever been done. We need people to lead, build teams, love the earth, love each other in ways that actually go against the ways we've been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. A maverick back in the day used to be someone who was like mavericking for the industry. It's like now we need mavericks like the opposite way. We need to like, we've been ebbing, we need to flow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's the leadership piece. And to me, the outselling everyone is really about enrollment, that whatever you're up to in life, you're going to have to enroll some people. You're going to have to sell people and get support and get community buy-in around it. And then ultimately, we talked about this, the ripples or the legacy, right? What's the impact, the consequences that you actually want to create on purpose?
Mm-hmm. Leadership or being a
Yeah.
leader is simply someone who's willing to find the path.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you is to empower people to find the path and maybe forge a new path, and to do it with commitment and integrity and values, and honoring the balance and the ebb and flow between our doing and our flowing and our masculine and our feminine and our giving and our receiving and all of that.
Yeah. We've been ebbing, which let's just call it like the masculine for a really long time. And that's why we have so much productivity on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what are we missing? Well, we're missing empathy and nurturing and care and love and gratitude and creativity, and that's the feminine. And it's, if we keep going in the masculine as hard as we've been going, we're actually just going to kill ourselves. It's not survivable. And I don't mean from the earth is, we're destroying the earth. I mean, look at human beings, like cancer and heart attacks and diabetes, like we're actually killing ourselves.
Yeah.
So to me, this isn't a masculine's bad. This is how do we, I think I've done this for you before, but to me, it's like, okay, so the scale is like masculine's up here in my left hand, way above. We don't need to bring the masculine down. The masculine can operate. It's like, we need to like raise up the feminine to meet the masculine. Mm-hmm. And then they both get to do this dance and keep going up higher and higher together. But we gotta like lean into that.
With this analogy of a teeter-totter, that makes the assumption that one has to go down for the other one to go up.
Yeah.
What if they can actually both rise? Chris Cotton used to always say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What if we can simply elevate the tide? Okay. Any last parting thoughts? Any last parting words? If someone's listening and they would like to reach out to you, they're curious about the work that you do, who is that person? Who are you kind of giving a shout out, a call out to, and how would you like them to reach out to you?
CEOs, visionaries, people that are outselling everyone. Some of my favorite clients are the people that have broken all their records in their industry. And they're like, what now? Right. Or what else is there? But even people that are heads of organizations, associations, companies, I want to bring this, especially this limitless maverick, this idea of this evolved leader that can get shit done and take action, but also can equally and just as powerfully bring the connection and the community and the creativity and the empathy, because it's only going to make the other side even stronger. And so I don't want to just bring this to individuals, but I want to bring it to the teams and the organizations that they're in.
And so they come to you and you will coach them as well as their organizations, and then potentially invite them to join one of your men's retreats.
Yeah. Or maybe, maybe they won't just be men's retreats. Maybe they'll be leadership retreats, or as you said, maybe there'll be couples retreats. The thing that was I think that was one of my biggest breakthroughs on this last retreat is it happened to be all men, but it was a leadership retreat, and it had me kind of go, wait a minute, this could be, just make some adjustments. But yeah, I mean, and what I do with everyone is unique. Almost our whole conversation, right? There is no copy paste model. I don't believe in it. I think like if you're doing a copy paste model, you're getting ripped off. It's custom created between us for what you need and who you want to be and what you want your company to be or what you want your relationships to look like.
I love it. And you're creating new spaces, creating new rooms.
Yeah.
I feel like the same thing is starting to come from me just this year, where I had a group program that was kind of like my offer. That anytime someone was having a conversation with me, that was the offer on the table.
Yeah.
And over the last year, I've gone, yeah, no, the offer is if you're leaning into my energy, let's have a conversation and let's co-create a personalized plan. Because not everybody wants to be in a group dynamic. Not everybody wants to meet with a sexologist. Not everybody wants to blah, blah, blah. And it makes it a lot more fun for me.
Yeah.
I don't want the monotony either. So I hear that loud and clear for you. And I know you and I've talked about the possibility of co-facilitating a retreat or co-planning. My creative juices are flowing. I'm seeing all sorts of kind of more tangible possibilities.
I love it. My retreat partner, Bob, was talking to me just the other day about we should do co-ed or couples. And one of the first things I said is like, I won't do it without a woman, right? Like it's not to me, it's funny when me and Bob and I hold our space, I hold the polarity of the masculine and Bob ends up holding the polarity of the feminine. Don't know why. Bob he's twice the size of me. He's massive. He's stronger than me. He's covered ready. He is a man. And yet he just holds the nurturing and I hold the container. But I think there's something important about if we are working with different sexes to have both of those energies in the space. Yep. I also think that when we're working with just men, I don't want feminine in the space at all, because I think it's actually a distraction. It's a pull. I need one of the men who are leading to own the feminine, but I don't want a feminine chef. I want it to really be clean. Especially because we know how men are, like our biological brains are just like drawn to women and to the feminine. Yeah. Or to whatever we're attracted to a degree.
Yep. No, totally. I can relate to that. Although the last retreat I facilitated, off the records, Gary Zukov did come in and facilitate. Nobody's ever going to see that because the photographer and the videographer were elsewhere, and he's just a dear friend of mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a very different energy. I mean, he holds such a different light.
Yeah.
And we were able to really pull it off beautifully. But otherwise, that to have a container that's all women or a container that's all men, I think is important and needed. And to create a container that offers safe integration.
Yeah.
And if it's leadership retreat, if it's a couples retreat, if it's a sexuality retreat, whatever it may be, how that's held is nuanced and beautiful. And I'm looking forward to doing it. I think this next year, I think in 2024, I'm going to create something.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Okay. Any last parting words? How do you want them to reach out to you? I don't think I heard the answer to that one.
Alex at thedreammason.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just email you.
just shoot me an email. Yeah.
Yep.
You can always, I mean, I'm on Instagram, undesirably on Instagram. Inspirational Alex. But yeah, reach out via Alex
right.
at thedreammason.com.
And thank you. Thank you for what you
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you for the authenticity that shows up in our conversations. For those of you listening, Alex has his own podcast and he interviewed me. So if you are still listening to this and you're wanting more, you are welcome to pop over to Alex. What's the name of your podcast?
The Dream Mason podcast.
The Dream Mason podcast. Pop over there and you'll be able to listen to even more conversation between he and I. And with that, thanks to everyone for your time. Really, truly, I know we all live productive lives, particularly for someone who's wanting to show up in their leadership. And I say thank you and I honor that you've shared your sacred and precious time with us in this space. And, this has been a lengthy interview and I don't take it lightly. So I honor you for your time. I honor myself for my time. Alex, I honor you for your time and the collective shared time that we've just had.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.